So what we are going to look at today is about unlocking your potential, and there will be some fantastic insights that you're going to gain. It's a continuation of the Power to Personal Achievement, part 3 of it. And as we have discussed before, it is based on a training by Brian Tracy, which I have come across, and I found it very inspiring, and I thought I should share it with you. So there is an interesting formula for human potential. Okay, so let's look at that formula. So there is something they call individual human potential, and the individual human potential, you can measure it by a formula like this. Now we will just look at what each of these are. IA is inborn attributes. Okay, I will just define each of these and then we will look at each of these in depth. So IA, inborn human potential, is equal to IA plus AA into A. So IA is the inborn attributes, and to that you add a product of the acquired attributes and your attitude. Okay, so I want you to imagine what we are talking about. One is there is a set of inborn attributes that you are born with. Second is acquired attributes over time, to which you multiply your attitude, and that total value is what we call the individual human potential. Now, this inborn attributes, what is it that we can do? See, there are certain qualities that we have innate in us. Okay, what best we can do about it is that we can discover what they are. And once you discover them, those inborn attributes, you can build on them. You can hone it and build it to your highest potential. Okay. Now, the next is the acquired attributes. Acquired attributes are basically skills, abilities, talent, knowledge, education, experience, so many things that we acquire over a period of time from the time we are born till today. So it's so many things that we have learned, part of even our regular education is a part of this acquired attributes, things that are outside our regular education. It could be music, it could be so many things. So there are a whole set of acquired attributes that we have, which we have acquired over time. And what is most overlooked is the contribution of our attitude to this whole individual human potential. Whatever is your acquired attributes, okay, it will get compounded by your attitude. So if you have a fantastic attitude towards life or an extremely positive attitude towards life, then whatever acquired attributes you have, which you have learned or will learn in future, can get multiplied and compounded. Okay, so in other words, what is really important is to look at this whole thing about attitude and what we can do about our attitude. Okay, now this innate, inborn attributes, they are largely fixed. There's not much that you can do because it's like you're born with those. It's more like a genetic thing. Now the acquired attributes, they change slowly over time, because in course of time you will learn something new, there will be some change that will happen. It's progressively, it keeps changing. Okay, but the attitude is something that can be changed in an instant. So this is very, very important to please understand clearly, that of all these parameters that you have, what you have control, where you can, like, today you decide, you can change your attitude. This moment you decide, you can change your attitude. That is possible with attitude alone. You can just simply change how you think about something. Right now you decide you want to be in a certain way, you can choose to be that way. Okay, so I think there is a bit of error in the way the presentation is. Okay, so what is your attitude? So we will, give a slightly, something that Mihir will relate with, something from my own past engineering training. We will look at this attitude from a very interesting angle of an aircraft. So attitude is the way you approach any particular situation. Okay, how you approach a situation is your attitude. The more positive you are, the better it is going to be. Okay, so how you are approaching the situation. So the comparison is, so I'm not sure how much others, all of you know about how an aircraft works and how an aircraft is able to fly. So there is this wings, they have, if you can see in this image on the left, there is the cross section of the wing is what is called an airfoil or an aerofoil section. Okay, it's a particular shape. And this aerofoil section is kept at what is called an angle of attack. There is a slight angle to the, if you want to call it the horizon or the zero, the horizontal level, there is a small angle. Now, the higher this angle of attack, or like, you know, when the aircraft wants to take off, what they actually do is they tilt the aircraft, you know, on its rear so that the angle of attack increases. Now, the moment the angle of attack increases, what happens is that there is something called a lift that is generated. Okay, so what lifts the aircraft off the ground is this angle of attack. Okay, and your attitude, you can compare it to your this angle of attack. Okay, so if you have a higher angle of attack, you get a higher lift. The aircraft lifts off. Similarly, if you have a more positive attitude, that positive attitude can lift you off in multiple levels. Okay, this is a very beautiful example. I don't know how many of you recognize this person in the image. It is Napoleon Bonaparte, who was, you know, what shall I say, one of the, emperor or whatever, you know, he was heading France for a pretty long time, and France was in a chronic war with Britain and with many other countries for all the many years during that period. So there is a very beautiful story or series of stories about Napoleon Bonaparte, about his attitude. So just watch. It is said that Napoleon lost only 3 battles out of 300 in his life. He fought 300 battles. Out of the 300 battles, he lost only 3 battles. Okay. And they say that if Napoleon was present on the battlefield, it was equivalent to having 2 divisions of the French army. Now, to get a sense of what one division means, one division is anything from 6,000 to 25,000 soldiers is one division. So I want you to imagine the perception that if Napoleon is present, it is equivalent to having 2 divisions of the French army. Another, you know, example that comes to my mind from our Indian mythology is the whole Kurukshetra war between the Kauravas and the Pandavas, where Arjuna chose the choice that Krishna gave his, that I will be on one side and my entire army and all my, you know, people who are loyal to me, everybody will be on the other side. So Arjuna chose Krishna. That one choice made the difference about how that whole war happened, right? So similarly, it is said that Napoleon's presence in the field was equivalent to just having 2 divisions of the French army. So if the news came in that Napoleon has arrived to direct the battle, the implication was that the spirit of the French army dramatically went up. Okay, and conversely, the spirit of the enemy went dramatically down. So Napoleon's attitude of confidence was overwhelming. That is what made the difference. Okay, so that's why we are saying that this attitude is so significant. See, you know, we have heard these kind of examples, you know, that somebody is always looking at the brighter side of things. The situation is the same, but what we focus on, some people focus on the brighter side, some people focus on what's not okay. You know, if it is cloudy, somebody will think that, oh, the clouds will just go away and it's going to be bright and sunny. And somebody will say, oh my God, it's going to rain. It's just our attitude. Okay. So attitude is considered the most important word in English language because it determines virtually everything. They say that 85% of your success depends on how much of a positive mental attitude you have. Please understand the importance of just having a positive mental attitude. And this is not just about Indus Viva, it's about anything and everything you do in life. If you choose to have a positive mental attitude, the probability of your success will dramatically go up. Okay? Right. So basically, life is an attitude. Okay, this mental attitude, remember, the beauty of it is that this mental attitude can be manufactured. It is not something that is a given. It is not something that you have to live with. It can be, it is something that you can actually create based on choices that you make.
So you can keep creating a positive attitude until the whole process becomes a habit, and until the whole thing becomes so automatic that you don't have to think about creating it. Okay, you just think of, I'm sure all of us have come across certain people who are so positive all the time. They're so positive. What will happen if they get knocked down? Adverse situation, it's not that they don't get adverse situations. They do face adverse situations, but if they get knocked down by an adverse situation, what do? They will take a deep breath, or they will get a good night's sleep, and then they will bounce back again and just get back to what they were doing. Okay, that's how certain people are, and it is possible to be that way. It is a choice that we can make, and it is something that we can manufacture, keep manufacturing it till the point that it becomes automatic. Okay, so where does this attitude come from? This is, we are going, the next layer, the next level. So this attitude comes from our expectations. If you recollect, in our last training session on the mental laws, we spoke at length about the law of expectations. Okay, so this attitude is stemming from those expectations. Our expectations about about the outcome determines our attitude. What we expect things are going to happen determines our attitude, and our expectations, they radiate out, and therefore these expectations, they also affect other people, and this expectation radiating out will cause them to behave in a manner that is consistent with our expectation. So because attitude is stemming from this, the positive attitude automatically results in situations around us happening in a way that we would like it to happen. So, for example, a best performing salesman is one who expects a sale every time. His attitude is that if I'm going to sell, I'm going to crack it. That's the attitude with which he's going. Okay. Or the best performing parents, they expect the best from their children all the time. Okay. So when successful people, see, it's not that setbacks don't happen to successful people, but when successful people experience a setback, they merely see it as another learning experience, and it is a part of the process. They just take it like that and move on. They don't get stuck and fixed and whine and complain and get depressed and all that. So as we said, attitude comes from our expectations. Now, where do expectations come from? Again, we saw this in our last training. Expectations come out of our beliefs and values. Okay. Now, today we are going to look at something far more in depth. If you absolutely believe that you will be a success in life, or you believe that you will be healthy, or you will be popular, financially independent, etc., okay, what happens is that your actions become consistent with that belief, right? And the results outside of you start happening that way. This is basically how it works. It's not a conscious process, but in a split of a second, these things start happening. It's like a cascading effect that happens. It's like, you put a stone in the still water, there's ripples that start off and those ripples start going out. Like that, it starts happening. There's a ripple effect that happens. So having what our beliefs and values are decide the expectations. And if you absolutely believe that you're going to be a success, you're going to be healthy, popular, whatever, financially independent, it will start happening in your life. In other words, the results that you see in your life and your beliefs and values are connected. Okay, what you are seeing or experiencing outside in your life is an outcome of what beliefs and values you hold. So if you are looking for change to happen outside in your life, you must look at what are the beliefs and values that you're holding, right? Now, this set of beliefs and values is what psychologists call our self-concept. And today, we are going to look at this self-concept in great depth. Okay, so please pay attention. From here on, we are going to focus on this self-concept, because this self-concept is actually deciding just about everything about our life. Okay, and they say that this understanding of what they call the self-concept is the greatest breakthrough in the study of psychology in the 20th century. Okay. So this self-concept is the totality of all the beliefs that you have from your birth till now. There are, whether we are conscious about it or not conscious about it, from our birth till now, we have been adding more and more, beliefs at different points in life. Different situations happened, and we made it a belief that this is the way it is. This is the way it is. We've been doing it all our life, whether consciously or unconsciously. The totality of that is what they call the self-concept. It makes up our total worldview. The person you are today is based on your self-concept about yourself. It is what they say, the command center of your life. So if you understand that this is so important, it is very important for you to understand what the self-concept is and look at what you can do about it. Right. So, a very nice example is like you imagine that there is a brick wall. Okay. Now, this brick wall that has been created is a series of bricks that have been added over a period of time. One by one, the bricks have been added. And each brick is a certain belief and value that we kept adding through our life. And now we have a complete wall, which is the self-concept. And you imagine how powerful that wall is now. But it is made up of a series of bricks that have been added from our birth till now. Okay, so what is your self-concept? So let's look at it. You remember we started this whole discussion with our attitude and how important attitude is. Remember that formula that we said? That formula, attitude was the deciding factor. Attitude is stemming out of our expectations, and expectations are stemming out of our beliefs and values. And this beliefs and values is coming out of what self-concept you hold, which is a collection of a series of beliefs and values right from birth till now. Now, the thing is that you cannot act inconsistent with your self-concept. Right now, whatever belief and value you hold, you cannot do something that is drastically different from it. You just try to do it, it will give you a lot of disturbance. And we will look at how that works and all that in subsequent slides. Okay. So the point is you cannot act inconsistent with your self-concept. Okay. You cannot act outside differently from how you are inside. Inside you are in a certain way, that's the same way it will come out. Okay. If you try to do it differently, you will suffer grievous problems. Like it becomes very, very disturbing for us. So, in other words, your self-concept precedes and predicts your level of performance and effectiveness. So, in other words, please understand that whatever results you are seeing in your life, whatever is happening in your life is actually preceded by the self-concept that you're holding. So, the self-concept that you have is kind of, if you feel that things are not happening, it is because there is a self-concept of yours which is preventing it from happening. So it is important that you understand and look at the self-concept in depth. So your self-concept. Now, let us suppose we draw two lines, like this is bottom line is like the absolute bottom level, and the upper line is the peak of what we call your potential for effectiveness. Okay. So there is such a big window available of what is your potential for effectiveness. Okay. Now, potential for effectiveness is how effective you can be in getting the results and goals that you want. So remember that the scope is very, very, very large. Very large. We may not even understand how large it is. That is the scope that is there. But practically speaking, what happens is most of us, we are operating at a very, very low level of our potential of effectiveness. That means out of the total potential that we have, we are using a very small percentage. They say that it's around 10%. Okay. There is, Brian Tracy was referring to some other study where he said it's actually 2%. Okay, which I did not bring that number in. But what I'm trying to say is that it is extremely small. The potential or effectiveness is so large, but we are actually using very little. Now, why is that happening? Okay, before that, an average person is effectively using only 10% of their effectiveness. Okay. So effectively what it means is you're accomplishing only 10% of what you're capable of. Again, which also means that you're earning only 10% of what you're capable of. Just imagine, simply because you're operating at that level. Okay, now it's like this. The less of your brain that you use, the weaker it becomes. It's like, your body muscles. Okay, if you don't use your muscles, you will find that it will start what they call atrophy. It will slowly start weakening, and it will not be able to work at all. Similarly, If we don't use your brain, the less of our brain that we use, the weaker it will become. Okay. So how do you use your brain? What you have to do is to challenge your brain. Okay. Or you can use your brain by learning new things. So keep challenging it. See, why is it that we keep talking about setting a goal and working towards that goal and all that? Why do we talk so much about training? Like now what we are talking about, or we keep insisting that you have to continuously be in a learning process so that your brain is continuously used and continuously challenged. Okay, that's the only way that we can build our potential for effectiveness. Now, if your potential for effectiveness is at this level, that is because your self-concept is at that level. A low self-concept creates a low potential for effectiveness. So in other words, what you have to address, if you want to increase your potential for effectiveness, what you have to address is the self-concept. So let's look at it in more depth. Now, the beauty of the self-concept is it's not an absolute thing. It is not like a precise thing. It is largely subjective. Subjective means that we have decided at different points in our life, this is it, that I am not good enough. Okay, I'll give you some examples. Subjective means like it's not based on facts. Okay, it is based on, it could be a very flimsy basis, like even a horoscope. So many of us, we get influenced by this palm reading or by what all, some predictions that come up and all that, right? So it could be something like this can decide your self-concept. Okay, or it can be impacted by what somebody said at some point in your life. At some time, somebody said something and you're carrying that around with you, and that has become your self-concept today. Okay, even what we read online, okay, or we may take some kind of a survey online or a personality test or something, and we say, oh, this is the result. Now you believe that result, and that becomes your self-concept. The point is that self-concept is subjective. Okay, it is not an absolute fact. It is what you believe is so. And since it is something that you believe is so, if you look at it and if you decide to change it, you can change it. Okay. So because of all this, at some point you make some decision, okay, and you say that this is me, you conclude, and you also believe that there is nothing I can do about it. So you believe that you're stuck. This is the way I am, and there is nothing more that I can do, and this is how life will be. That is why we are stuck at this level of self-concept. At a 10% level, we are operating at that level, and therefore results are also coming at that level. Now, the interesting thing is that this self-concept is not one single thing. It is a series of mini self-concepts. Okay, it is, for every area of life that you consider important, you have a self-concept about it. So I'll just give examples. For example, how you drive. Okay, you have a self-concept about how you drive. Okay, and guys, males tend to think that they are fantastic drivers. Okay, that's what Brian Tracy says, and probably I'm trying to kind of look at my own life, and I'm supremely confident about how I drive. Sujata doesn't think so, but I think so. Okay, then how you dress. You have a self-concept about it, that this is the way I like to dress, on this is how I look. There are certain concepts that we have. How creative I am. We have self-concept that, oh, I am so creative only, or you may think you are very creative, or you're very poorly creative. Whatever that level is, how intelligent we are. We have a self-concept that I am like this only. About your diet and your health. So many people believe that some people believe they're extremely healthy, some people believe they're extremely unhealthy. Okay, it's not based on facts. Remember, it is just what you believe, right? How friendly you are. You have a belief about it, that, oh, I'm an extremely friendly person, or I'm extremely unfriendly, or I'm extremely unpopular or popular, whatever it is, right? So for each of these areas, like, how good a parent you are, we believe. Most of us, of course, believe that we are fantastic parents, right? So for each area of life that we consider important, we have self-concepts for each of these areas. Okay, so we have what we call mini self-concepts. So it is etc., etc., etc. There are so many areas, there are many self-concepts, and that is making our overall concept about ourselves, self-concept about ourselves. Now, even if you look at sales, now some of you have been into the area of in the Indus Viva thing, and you have actually looked at sales, right? We have so many of our, these are our various steps. list making, invitation, presentation, closing, follow-up, and onboarding, right? In each of these areas, we have a self-concept. Some of us believe that, no, I cannot make a sale. Some people believe, though, oh, I don't know anybody. I can't make a list. I can't make a list more than this. Some people believe that, oh, it's so difficult to invite. How can I invite anybody? Some people say, I can't make a presentation at all. Okay. Others say, I can't follow up. I'm no good at following up. Remember that every one of these are subjective beliefs that you have about yourself. Okay. And they're all self-concepts. And the point is that as far as you're concerned, they are real. And that is what is playing out in your life. Now, the interesting thing is that we have our comfort zone in each of these areas. Not only this, in all the other areas of our life, we have our comfort zone, that self-concept that we have. And we operate within that comfort zone. Let's look at that thing about comfort zone now. So even about money, okay, how much we earn, we have a self-concept. Now, the interesting thing is this. Remember, please observe this carefully. The interesting thing is that it's not just about the money, it's about every self-concept. You can never earn more than 10, that is more than 10% above or below your self-concept level of income. So right now, if you're earning whatever you're earning, okay, it is very strongly linked to what self-concept you have about how much you can earn. So in other words, if you are trying to push your earning level, right? First thing is that you have to look at your self-concept, what you believe. Okay, that belief will stop you. That means if you try to cross, so you know what will happen. Suppose you earn, suddenly you earn more than 10%, your upper 10% gets crossed. Let us say you won a prize or you got a huge refund from the income tax department or whatever happened. Okay, suddenly you will start compensating behavior of too much money. Okay, typically what people do, they will just spend it. Okay, or they will just give it away, or just blow it up on vacations or a fancy car or something. Okay, now after reading this, I am starting to look at it myself, right? Do I have a self-concept that, okay, this is what, my earning capacity is. Anything that comes over it, then I start thinking of, how to, use it and all that. So the point is that the moment you cross your upper limit of 10%, compensating behavior to dispose the money will kick in. Similarly, okay, so that's the reason why they say that 2/3 of the lottery winners are broke in 3 years. They are back to square one or even worse, simply because they are just not able to, their mind, that, lottery, that money that they have won is completely out of their self-concept of how much they can earn. So they are not able to cope with it, and therefore compensating behavior, they just blow it up. Okay. So on the other side, if you cross the lower percent of their how much you can earn, let us say you lose your job or something like that happens, then immediately compensating behavior of too little money will kick in. You will suddenly get creative about reducing your expense. Okay, you will start working longer hours to earn more money. Okay, you will have different ideas about how to get back into your comfort zone. So that comfort zone of yours is that plus minus 10% is your comfort zone. Okay, of how much money you can earn. Right. So what happens is that the moment you go out of your comfort zone, outside your self-concept, you will somehow scramble desperately to get back into your comfort zone. Okay. Now remember that this comfort zone is your trap also. Okay. The comfort zone, from survival point of view, it is designed to take care of your survival. But this comfort zone is your trap. It is your greatest enemy to success. The moment you get stuck in your comfort zone, you get into your comfort zone, the tendency is just to stay there. You do not want to move out of it. Okay. So that typically, whenever you get out of the comfort zone, you just somehow get back into it and you just want to stay there. Okay. So now what is the solution? So let's look at it. Why is it? Okay. Right. So the point is, one of the suggestions is that you keep raising your comfort zone, what you call self-concept level, no? Keep shifting it up progressively. So, what Brian Tracy was talking about is that you set a target that every year I'm going to increase my income by 25%. Okay. So it's not an abrupt increase. So every year there is a larger amount, and by the time that 25% increase comes, your self-concept will adapt to the new income. Then you set a higher target. Again, your self-concept will adapt. Then set a higher target. So progressively keep going up. And this is not just about money. It's about any area of your life. Okay. So let's take any one particular self-concept, mini self-concept. Okay, there is a lower limit and there is an upper limit, and there is this comfort zone in between. Now, as we said, there is a comfort zone for each of your mini self-concepts. Okay, for everything there is a a comfort zone like this, a zone like this. Okay. Now, the average of all this mini self-concepts of yours is your overall self-concept. Okay. So what we say is my self-concept is actually an average of a large number of mini self-concepts. And if you want to make a change here, you have to keep addressing different of the mini self-concepts and keep pushing it up. So there is a different way to look at the self-concept. They say that this self-concept consists of 3 sub-components. So what are those sub-components? There is a self-ideal. There is something called a self-image, and there is something called a self-esteem. These 3 things make up your self-concept. So if you want to improve your self-concept, you have to address your self-ideal, your self-image, and self-esteem. So let's look at each of them. Your self-ideal. Your idea of what constitutes a winner is your ideal. See, we have certain people whom we hold as the ideal, no? So there is some quality that we are seeing in them. Okay. And leaders and successful people have very, very clear self-ideals. Okay. And on the other end of the spectrum, unsuccessful people are very fuzzy about their self-ideals. Okay. It is basically the qualities that, people admire in other people, no? That you admire. You will look at some quality and you'll say, wow, what a fantastic person. That quality is your self-ideal. Okay. So like that, there are many different qualities that we look at in different people. The qualities that we most like to have in ourselves, we tend to admire it in other people. And there is always a tension between us, within us, between what we are and what we would like to be. There is always that gap. Now, for example, the example that the parents set is so important because the children believe that that is what they would like to be. See, why is it that we say that parenting is such an important thing and we have to take care when we as parents? Is because right from childhood we are setting up these ideals, we are setting up these self-concepts. Okay, we will be looking at this whole thing about children in the next week's session also. So people who are successful as adults, when they are young, it's interesting. There is a study that was done, and what they found is people who are successful as adults, when they were young, they have read a lot of biographies and autobiographies of successful people. In other words, what has happened is in the process, they have, identified certain admirable qualities. And because you're reading it and you're reinforcing it in your mind, you soak it within yourself and create your self-ideal out of it. That becomes your self-ideal. Okay. So the qualities we most admire in others are the qualities that we try to emulate within ourselves. So just look at this. Please try and identify your self-ideals. Try and see how clear you can get about it. Self-image. Okay. This self-image is different. Now see, it is how you see yourself or think about yourself right now. Right now, how do you see yourself? Right now, how do you think about yourself? Okay. The way you see yourself inside is the way we perform outside. Okay. Now, if you, for example, this is a nice example, that suppose you want to actually be thin, you're looking at losing weight. Okay. Then first you have to start thinking thin. Okay. Now, when you're saying thinking thin, what you could do is that, for example, you have images. Again, that's again the importance of having these goals and actually writing down goals, having visual images about goals. Is that when you have for example, in the context of weight loss, if you have an image and every day you're looking at the image of somebody who is really fit, the way you think fitness should be. Okay. And the interesting thing that Brian Tracy said is that you replace that person's face with your face in the image. So today, of course, with computers, we can manipulate, all these images. So you create a virtual image of yourself, okay, of a fit image of yourself and put your face on that. So every time you look at this image, you're telling your subconscious mind that this is how I would like to be. and that process starts working inside. So your self-image about yourself makes a very big difference about your self-concept. And the third is your self-esteem. There's a lot about self-esteem. We will look at some part of it. There is more that will follow next week. So this is how you feel about yourself. See, there is a difference. One is how you just look at yourself. Some people think that, I'm not very attractive. That is the self-image, right? Or, they say that, look, I'm so obese, and they have a desire that they want to be thin. But self-esteem is how you feel about yourself. Okay. The best definition they say is how much you like yourself. Just imagine, there was a person named Nathaniel Branden, who was an author, and he's said to have done a huge amount of work related to self-esteem, and he's authored many books on self-esteem. Okay. He's the author of this book called Six Pillars of Self-Esteem. So what he says is this: self-esteem is the reputation we acquire with ourselves. How we look at ourselves, the kind of perception that we have about ourselves is our self-esteem. The reputation that we have, it's a feeling. So the best definition is how much do you like yourself? So Brian Tracy says that self-esteem can be built up by simply repeating over and over again, I like myself. Okay. This is like a positive reinforcement that you keep doing. In fact, Brian Tracy, he's used it in his own life. He says that before every day in the morning, just wake up and tell yourself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. You're about to enter into some meeting, or you're, about to enter into a presentation, or, some activity that you're getting into. I like myself, I like myself. The moment you start positively looking at yourself, just the feeling of happiness, it's your, the overall experience of yourself starts getting boosted. Okay. They say that self-esteem is the determinant of your success and happiness in life. Okay. So therefore, the more you like yourself, your overall self-concept will improve. Okay. That's why it's so important to have, we are talking about why you need to have a positive mindset, why you need to look at the positive side of things. Why this is important is because that is what will improve your self-concept. You start performing better in every area of life. The more you begin to like yourself, the more you fall in love with yourself, the more you accept yourself the way you are. Okay. You will start seeing that you start performing better in all areas of life. And also what will happen is you will automatically start liking other people also, because you are at peace with yourself. You stop worrying about what are they thinking about me. That thing will stop bothering you. Okay. And you become much, much happier. See, what they are saying is that your mind can at one time hold only one thought at a time. Okay. So therefore, if you keep replacing whatever thought is there, whatever may be happening in your mind, if you keep replacing it with I like myself, it will just cancel out any other negativity. If you see, because negativity can arise out of any unpleasant situation. Whatever may come out, if you keep reinforcing yourself with positive affirmations, okay, at one time you can only hold one thought at a time. So if you consciously push in a positive affirmations, right, this will push out the other thing till it becomes a habit and you are naturally, in a positive state of mind. Okay. So the more you say I like myself, overall your self-concept improves. You start performing. Is it a repeat? I'm sorry, the slide is repeating itself. I'm sorry, the slide just repeated itself. So as we said, the mind can hold only one thought at a time. So you cannot say I like myself and have a negative thought at the same time. And therefore, saying I like myself can cancel out any negativity that may arise. Okay. So this is, it was probably like a solid dose that you got. We are going to be continuing with unlocking our potential again next week. There is much more to discuss.